Hey guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. Hey guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today we're going to be talking about the Book of Esther. Now, if you don't know what the Book of Esther is about, it's basically how Queen Esther saved the Jews from destruction. But before we get into the video, please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, because these videos actually take a really long time to make, and you'd be doing me the biggest favor if you actually did do those things. But without further ado, let's cover the Book of Esther. So King Xerxes, he's the ruler of a large kingdom, and he throws a 180-day party to basically impress people, important people, so like officials, leaders, people like that. And while King Xerxes is having his own party, Queen Vashti is having her own little get-together with a bunch of women of the palace, and it's away from the men's celebration. Yeah. They did that. And then King Xerxes basically wants Queen Vashti, he basically wants to show her off to like the people, to impress them. And he basically wanted to show them how beautiful his queen was. And then Queen Vashti refuses to come out because she didn't want her husband treating her like she was an object. And yeah, she just didn't like that. The only way he wanted to show her off was in front of a bunch of people, and yeah. Angry and unsure what to do, King Xerxes goes to his wise men and he basically asks for advice. And then the wise men tell him, yo, if your wife keeps acting like this, other women might think it's a good idea to talk back to their husbands like she's doing to you. So you should probably remove her from her status as being queen. And then he bans Vashti from the palace, and he basically removes her status as being queen. He also wrote a law that she was never to see or be before him again. And then a new queen appeared. And then to find a new queen, King Xerxes actually puts out a search to get a bunch of young, beautiful women to the palace so they could be prepared and treated and to, be shown before the king. And Esther, a young Jewish girl, or also, by the way, I should probably go ahead and mention this, she tried covering up her identity. She took advice from her cousin Mordecai, and she covered up her identity, and she was one of the women that was sent to the palace to help search for a new queen. She's basically taken to the palace to join the search for a new queen. And Esther wins the favor of the king's servants. Because of this, Esther was made to stand out more than the other, women that were there. She was given more beauty treatment, stuff like that, so she'll stand out. And then out of all of the women, King Xerxes actually picked Queen Esther. Because, she's queen now, so Queen Esther. Yeah, she's dope. Queen Esther. Also, sorry if I slur a bunch and I actually say Esther. I don't mean to say that. That's just the way I speak. So Esther, forgive me. I just make that a disclaimer now. And then King Xerxes remembers Vashti, the queen he had previously banned from the palace. He's thinking about it. He's like, man, was I too harsh? Should I have actually found a new queen? And then Mordecai, Esther's guardian and cousin, visits her daily, and he keeps an eye on her from the gates. And he also gives her advice when the opportunity presents itself. And then Esther wins the favor of the king's chief, Haggai. That was the dude's name. And he was the king's chief's eunuch, who is in charge of women. He also gives Esther, special beauty treatments and, stuff like that. And taking Mordecai's advice, she does not show her heritage, and she hides the fact that she's Jewish. Yeah, she did that. And then, Esther becomes queen, and Mordecai starts working at the gates. And then he uncovers a plot that two guards are going to smoke King Xerxes. And then he tells Queen Esther. Queen Esther passes that information on, and this saves the king's life. When King Xerxes finds out that the two guards are basically plotting to smoke him, he has them both executed, and he records Mordecai's actions, not yet to reward him. And then King Xerxes promotes Haman, a high-ranking officer. So he promotes him, and he becomes second highest in command. And every time he is to walk by a group of people, they are to bow down to him, or they are to bow to him. Mordecai, Esther's cousin, refuses to bow down to Haman because he thought, I'm not going to bow down to anybody except God himself. This angered Haman, and then Haman vowed to wipe out all of the Jews. Which by itself is insane. Imagine you being Jewish or Christian or Muslim, and then you don't bow down to someone, and because of that, they threaten to wipe out all of your homies. Like, that's crazy. And after this, Haman is basically choosing a date of which he's going to, massacre the Jews, which is between the 13th and the 12th. Psychopath. And then Haman basically bribes King Xerxes, or whatever his name is. He basically bribes the king, saying that, when I wipe out the Jews, it's going to actually benefit the kingdom. And he also offered him a large sum of money, and I'm pretty sure you can guess what happened next. And the king actually issues a decree that gave him permission to carry on with this massacre. The massacre of the Jews was going to happen on the 13th of the 12th month, meaning if you were to smoke a Jew, you could get away with it, and there would be no consequences falling before you. Which, when you really think about it, it's quite insane. Like, all Mordecai did was just not bow down to him. And because of that, it's insane, because Haman wanted to wipe out all of the Jews just because a Jew wouldn't bow down to him. He went as far as to bribe the king also. The king was like, sure, because he was given a bunch of money and he was told that it would actually benefit the kingdom. And he just gave him permission to just wipe out the Jews just because he wouldn't bow down to Haman. Psychopath. And then after this, can you guess what King Xerxes, or whatever his name is, and Haman did? They celebrated. The psychopaths, meaning while these two are in their houses or in their whatever, wherever they're at, they're having a celebration with drinks while the people are in chaos because the king just ordered the massacre of the Jews. What? And when Mordecai learns about the decree, he as you would imagine, he's very upset by this. He tears his clothes in sorrows, wears a sackcloth. If you don't know what a sackcloth is, at the time, it was like a sign of sorrow. And then he goes to his city to mourn, and he expresses how torn he is about this to the people, yeah. And then Esther hears about Mordecai's mourning, and she sends clothes to him. And then, Mordecai refused to wear the clothes, so she's like, what's going on with Mordecai? So she sends one of her servants to Mordecai to see what's wrong with him. Mordecai then explains the full situation to Esther, basically telling her, like, your husband's a psychopath and him and his buddy want to wipe out the Jews. She gets word of this, and then Mordecai basically tells her that, you're in your position as queen. You're probably in this position as queen for this very moment. Like, this is probably why you're in your, queen. And Esther is afraid of the king's court, mainly because it was against the law to go to the king if you were not summoned there. This was punishable by death, I would be scared too, And then Mordecai basically sends her a message saying something between the lines of this. Don't think you will escape because you live in a palace. If you remain silent, God will save the Jews another way, but you and your family will perish. And then Esther basically calls Mordecai and all of the Jews to a fasting for 3 days. They fasted for 3 days and 3 nights. And Queen Esther thought this was going to prepare her to approach the king. And then Esther decided that she was going to go see the king. At this point, she's like, yo, if I get smoked, I get smoked. If I perish, I perish. And, I guess I'm going to go out doing what's right for, my people. And then Esther approaches the king. When the king sees Esther, he's pleased, and he extends his gold scepter out to her. And this basically means that she was allowed to speak to him. And then she goes up to his golden scepter, and she touches it, giving her permission to speak. Basically, when he extended his golden scepter, that means she was able to live to see another day. Because you gotta think, if you went to the king without being summoned, and he didn't raise his scepter, your life was going to be taken because it was against the law to do something like that. Why? I don't know, but apparently it was just against the law, psychopath, psychopath with psychopathic laws. And then the king asks, hey, what do you want? I'll give you everything, even if it's half of the kingdom. And then Queen Esther, wise and calm, she calmly invites the king and Haman to a banquet she prepared. And, as you can imagine, Haman is still angry at Mordecai. And, after Esther's invitation, he leaves the palace in good spirits. But, what's his name? Mordecai still refuses to bow down to Haman. And Haman does what any reasonable man would do. He makes gallows ready, and he gets ready to hang Mordecai. I know what you're probably thinking. Hey, that's really reasonable. Only a reasonable man would make an entire gallows just to smoke another man because he wouldn't bow down to him. I know, way beyond reason. Okay, it's very reasonable. It's very reasonable. I know. And then Haman basically plots to smoke Mordecai. He told his wife and his friends. They basically told him to make the gallows high and just to smoke him. If you guys don't know what a gallows is, it's basically the thing where when they go to smoke you, they put you up there and they put a fun. How do I say this without this video getting taken down? They're going to take a fun rope, and they're going to, there's no way I could possibly explain this without, getting demonetized or this video taken down. They were going to hang him. And they also thought by Haman doing this that he was going to gain favor and satisfaction from the king. Psycho. And then Esther prepares for the banquet. She basically invites the king and Haman, yeah. Basically inviting them both there, and she doesn't just, she's trying to remain strategic in how she does this. Like, she knows this is just the first step. And then at the banquet, the king basically asks Esther, hey, what do you want? And then Esther requests to have a second banquet where she will then reveal her request of what she wants. That night, King Xerxes is unable to sleep, and he asks for the kingdom's records, because he thought it would just help him fall asleep. So he's just reading kingdom records, and he's like, I'm getting sleepy. And then as he's reading these records, he comes across Mordecai's death, or his record of death, and he's looking at this, and he's like, well, that's there. And then he's like, oh wait, Mordecai actually saved my life, and he was wondering how to honor him. And then just as, the king, Xerxes, or whatever his name is, but the king is, thinking about how he is going to reward Mordecai, and as he's thinking about this, Haman comes in, and he's like, hey, yo, can I hang him? Can I hang Mordecai? Because you gotta think, at this time, he was building gallows to, to take away, Mordecai's, yeah. And this was the perfect timing, because now the king was faced with the decision. Smoke his husband, smoke Mordecai, or don't smoke Mordecai. Which, yeah, And then, out of nowhere, the king basically asks Haman how to honor a man, and Haman responds by saying that the guy that is being honored should be dressed in king's clothing. He should be given a crown, and he goes on to say that this is the most honorable thing a man can receive. And then to his surprise, Haman realizes who he's talking about, and the king basically tells Haman, yo, go do everything you said, but for Mordecai the Jew. Mordecai at this time is at the gate, so what's his name? Haman is getting ready to, publicly honor Mordecai. And then, he can't really defy the orders of a king, so, what's his name? Haman decides to get Mordecai, give him a whole parade, and basically being like, yo, this is the honor of our king has given this dude, yeah. And, after this is all done, Mordecai just returns to his regular 9-to-5 job at the gate, and Haman goes home ashamed and broken. His pride was destroyed, and he was deeply embarrassed by the turn of events. And then Haman's family basically just predict his downfall, saying stuff like, because, Mordecai, this honor he just got is a sign of your downfall. Your loving and kind family just wanted you to know that. And as Haman is about to respond to his wife's warning, he gets a message saying that yo, you need to pull up to the Queen Esther's second banquet. And, he's deeply, at this time, he's deeply troubled, but he still has to go because, he can't defy the orders of a king. And then at Esther's second banquet, the king and Haman are there, and the king basically asks, what's your name? Queen Esther, hey, baby girl, I'll give you anything you want, even if it's up to half of my kingdom. And then she basically reveals, Haman's, plot. So she basically tells her husband, or the king, that someone has planned to kill my people, and I believe it is Haman. And then the king, hearing this, is surprisingly upset. Like, he's furious. He didn't know that Haman was the one who basically put a hit out for the massacre of the Jews. And so he just walks away, trying to calm down. And then Haman is basically asking Queen Esther for mercy. He knows that his life is in danger. And then he hops on the couch that she was, like, reclining on, pleading for his life, and then the king walks in. Ooh! And then the king walks in and sees that Haman is on the couch pleading for his life while his wife is reclining on the couch. He sees this as an act of disrespect, so he's like, oh, bet. So he's finna assault my wife with me in the house? Really? Basically, this worsens Haman's situation. And then one of the king's attendants, Harbona, says that, hey, I was just eavesdropping. Did you know that, what's his name? Haman actually built a gallows to hang Mordecai? You know, that never happened, so we should just use it on him. This sealed Haman's fate. And yeah, Haman is executed. Yeah. Evil plans. No more. Yeah. Yeah. And then the king gives Mordecai Haman's estate. So basically how this happened is after he was executed, Haman, the king gave Queen Esther Haman's estate, and then Queen Esther gave Mordecai Haman's estate. This put Mordecai into a position of power. And Queen Esther, after all of this happened, gets on her feet, and she bows before him, and she basically just begs him not to slaughter her people. And so the king actually writes a new decree saying that the Jews will be able to defend themselves against any attack on the 13th of Adar. Basically, the king gives Queen Esther the authority to write a new decree in Mordecai's name. And the king also gives Mordecai a signet ring. This basically makes it to where the decree is official and makes him to where he's able to seal it. And then Mordecai basically writes a new decree saying that, you know, the Jews will be able to defend themselves on the 13th of Adar. This gives the Jews a new hope. In the city of Susa, there was a joy and celebration. The Jews' or however you said that, the Jews' enemies are filled with fear because they're like, oh, okay, the Jews are, you know, they're getting ready to fight back, and they're allowed to fight back, but not only are they able to do that, the king is supporting them. And then Mordecai's his rise to power, he comes out of the palace wearing, like, fancy drip, and he's wearing a golden crown. And he was looked at as a great leader, and, you know, he was, you know, wise, and, you know, yeah, good on Mordecai, glow up. And then the Jews basically prepare for battle, so they're going to get ready to, you know, if someone tries to attack them, they're going to defend themselves, and, you know, everything is anxious, and everybody waits, and, you know. And then the fear of the Jews basically spreads, because they came to the realization that, like, the enemies did. They came to the realization of, like, oh, okay, the Jews are, like, now, they're you know, they're dripping with aura. They're intimidating with their newfound strength, especially if the king supports them. And many people actually align themselves with the Jews because of this. And then the 13th of Adar comes around, and then the people slide on the Jews, but then the Jews, you know, like, they smoke anybody that goes or runs up on them. This was a great victory for the Jews. In the city of Susa, the Jews smoke 500 men. This includes Hanan's 10 sons. Wow, couldn't stop at him, did ya? I don't know. And also, the bodies of Haman's sons were hanged on display, just like as a warning. And Queen Esther was like, hey, yo, king, husband, can I do this? And he's like, sure, whatever. So the Jews defend themselves, and they smoked 75,000 people, but they did not plunder or do anything like that. And they wanted to set an example in Susa, whatever. And this was a day of victory, or no, it was a day of celebration and survival. And from this victory, the Jews made something called the Feast of Purim. This is basically where they would celebrate where they were saved from destruction, and they would also give gifts to the poor. So yeah. And then Mordecai basically sends, you know, messages to, you know, the Jews being like, hey, we're doing the Feast of Purim. Y'all should do that too. King Xerxes continues to rule over 127 provinces. And then Mordecai is recognized in his leadership and also for saving the Jews. And then Mordecai's reputation, like, gets up there, and Mordecai is remembered as being, like, a very powerful figure. A very powerful figure, yeah. Good. And Mordecai is also celebrated for his wisdom and his justice. Basically, he just had a really good reputation and a really good legacy. You know, this defeats Haman's evil plot, and, you know, Mordecai becomes a very powerful key figure in his kingdom, or the kingdom. And, yeah, that was the book of Esther, you know, that was it. Thank you for, watching the video. As you could tell through the video, it started getting really hot, but yeah, I thought I'd just go ahead and make this video. And I also made the book of Nehemiah. That's, I don't know. That book is dropping, after, or before this one. But, yeah, I hope you guys like the videos, yeah. The next book is the book of Job. Oh, we're going to get into that one, aren't we? Yes. But, yeah, thank you for watching the videos. Please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, because these videos actually take a really long time to make, and you'd be doing me the greatest favor if you actually did do those things. And, yeah, please make sure to subscribe, especially, because we're about to hit 100,000 subscribers. Currently, we're at 61K. But, yeah, thank you. Please like, comment, subscribe. I thank you, but I feel like that's about it. I thank you, I love you, and God bless.